All right, let's look at 109. If our cosine of x is negative 4/5, and x is an element of pi to 3 pi over 2, what does that actually mean? Here's pi, here's 3 pi over 2. So what that really means is, what quadrant are we in? So all that beginning stuff says is that cosine is negative 4/5, and we're talking about the third quadrant. Find the exact values of sine 2x, cosine 2x, sine x over 2, and cosine x over 2. All right, so I kind of cleaned up our cosine x equals negative 4/5 in the third quadrant. So if we want to find the exact values, it says start by drawing a triangle. Start by drawing that triangle where the cosine of x equals 4/5. If we do our Pythagorean theorem, that opposite side should be 3. Now we should be able to say that the sine of x is 3/5. And if we're talking about the third quadrant, sine is also negative. So we drew our triangle, got our sine equals negative 3/5. All right, I've got my formula here for the sine of 2x is 2 times the sine of x times the cosine of x, which would be why I had to make the triangle to find the sine of x. So now I can just substitute those right into my formula. So the sine of 2x is 2 times the sine of x times the cosine of x. Sine of x is negative 3/5. Cosine of x is negative 4/5. So if we do the multiplication, it's 2 times 12 over 25, which is going to be 24 over 25. Sine of 2x. Let's find the cosine of 2x, which is the cosine of x squared minus the sine of x squared. Cosine of x is negative 4/5 squared minus negative 3/5 squared. So I have 16/25 minus 9/25. So my cosine 2x should be 16 minus 9, 7/25. If ever we're going through one of these problems and we don't get a common denominator, we've done something wrong. We need to make sure we get a common denominator. It's common denominators, always going to happen. And then looking above for our half angle formulas, the sine of theta over 2 is plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine theta over 2. So plus or minus 1 minus negative 4/5 over 2. Let's go ahead and simplify this fraction up here. 1 plus 4/5, and let's call it 5/5 plus 4/5. So we're going to make that 9/5 over 2, which then we can make plus or minus 9/10. And the big question always comes, is it the plus or is it the minus? If my angle x was in the third quadrant, it was between 90 and 180 degrees. If I divide those by 2, I'm going to be between 45 and 90. So that angle is going to be in the first quadrant. So we would just use the plus side of our angle. So we check where our angle was. We think about dividing that quadrant by 2. And then what quadrant would that put our new angle in? That's why we'd have a positive root 9 over 10. And then last, let's find our cosine. Got our formula of plus or minus 1 plus the cosine of theta over 2, square root of 1 plus negative 4/5 over 2, 5/5 plus negative 4/5 gives me 1/5 divided by 2. If I multiply by 1/2, I get the square root of 1/10. Again, we've got the plus or minus. If we were in this quadrant and we divide by 2, our angle is going to be somewhere up here. So therefore, it's just going to be the positive side of it. Got it. Let's take a look at that. If this is 180 and this is 270, 180 divided by 2 is 90. I thought I made a mistake here. 270 divided by 2 is 135. So our angle is actually in here, which means the sine of it would still be positive, but the cosine of it would actually be a negative. One more time. Quadrant 3 is from 180 to 270 degrees. If I divide 180 by 2, because we're doing half an angle, I get 90. If I divide 270 by 2, I get 135. So that angle has to be somewhere in here, which means it's going to have a negative cosine and a positive sine.